I looked up to the sky and I said, as an atheist, if there's a God up there, I can't do this on my own anymore. But 95% of what he's taught me is what we teach here. So after 10,000 patients, we have a 98, 99% success rate. We can rewire brains for success. We can rewire brains for addiction, for anxiety. But that addictive personality, once cleared, the brain is genius.
Welcome to Keep Hustling, where we are going past the why to get to the how. I'm your host, the always hustling Aaron Gordon, aka NY Risk Advisor, aka Mr. Keep Hustling. In this podcast, we will be diving deep into the professional and personal successes of our guests to find out how they hustled through the most difficult times in their life and their development to achieve the success they've gotten to today. So buckle up for what hopes to be an amazing ride. And of course, now and always, keep hustling.
Welcome to Keep Hustling with my guest, Dr. Rob Kelly. Dr. Kelly, thank you so much for being here all the way from across the pond.
Of course, man. Great to be here. Thank you so much.
I'm willing to have you on and listen to you talk just so that our listeners can enjoy your accent for the better part of a half hour. So we'll take it. Dr. Kelly, I begin most episodes by imploring our listeners to read the bio. You've done incredible things, and you're doing incredible. Yes, your story begins, I think, with a challenge that you hustled through and overcame. And as I said to you before we went live, I believe that there's going to be a different type of an episode, so I hope everyone sticks around. I just want to begin by getting to the background of, can you take us to the time when you what was going on when you decided to make that change in your life, and how you hustled through that, and why you decided to give back to others in that way?
So, a bit of background on me. I'm from Manchester, England, and now reside in San Antonio, Texas. Though I still have offices in England. Alcoholic, born into an alcoholic family. Didn't really affect me. Took my first drink at the age of 9 on a stage in Liverpool. I was playing bass guitar with my auntie and uncle. And it kind of took off from there, really. Drinking Friday and Saturday, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And as life goes on, every day. Got married, 2 beautiful daughters, ages 1 and 3, when it all went wrong. Went through a crazy period where I had the money. I'm a real big high achiever. I've got the addictive personality, which basically means that I'm either all in or I'm all out. There's no middle road for me. Somebody the other day said, "Hey, do you want to come play basketball?" I'm like, "No, I've never played." "Well, come and try." "No, I'm good." So I've got to be good at something and know I'm going to succeed. So horrible things happening in the house. I stabbed my wife 3 times one night because she wouldn't let me finish my bottle of vodka. I fell on the children. I left them in, cinemas. So I went to get a drink. Just horrendous things, man. And my wife left with the children. I got them back the next day, the children, and then the authorities came round. I'm like drunk for like 2 days, not been fed or changed diapers and nothing. So like a month or 2 after that, I was homeless. So I'd lost the big house, I'd lost the cars, the medical license, I lost everything. And I'm on the streets for the first time thinking, shit, where did that go wrong? And I stayed on the streets for 14 months. And it's one of those situations which is weird, that if you once you live on the streets for a certain amount of time, especially with me, I was brought up in the projects, very low income. Where I come from, you needed to fight to stay alive. And, I died twice on the streets of Manchester, and they brought me back to life on 2 occasions. And it was horrendous, huh? And then one morning, I had a little bit of a spiritual awakening, and I later got off the streets and decided that I'm going to spend the rest of my life working with people that are suffering from addiction and their families. And as the years go on, we used to be, 20 years ago when I came to America, we used to be 95% addiction, 5% mental health. Today we build empires. We work with entrepreneurs. We work with mindset people, alcoholics, addicts, depression, Alzheimer's, dementia, anxiety, PTSD. So we have a wide range that we work with today, and we love what we do because we do what we love.
There's a lot to unpack there. First of all, thank you for
Yeah,
sharing.
yeah,
I have a bunch of questions, and however long you take to respond, that's totally fine. You said you had a spiritual awakening. Obviously,
yeah,
people who come out of these very difficult circumstances, something has to click. But I've always, and that's why I said things will be a little bit different today. I've always wondered, like, what does that mean? And I'm going to frame it for you. You had already lost the family. You had already lost the house. You had already lost the money. It's not like 3 days later you woke up from the hangover and said, click. That's the awakening, right? The awakening is
yeah,
I'm not making light of the situation, but I'm gonna play the game. I'm gonna ride out the track as long as I can. Everything comes crashing down. That's the moment of the awakening. You said it was over a year that you were on the streets, and then the awakening happened. So I have to ask, can you point to that? Can you take us there? I'm sure you've reflected on it given your work. What was that like, or how or why? Because I assume that until that moment, you may have had momentary blips of, hey, maybe I want to get off the streets, but it just never stuck.
yeah,
So,
yeah. And it's a crazy awakening with a crazy story, which I'll crush down to a couple of minutes. But you know, after 40 months on the street, I was round the back end of Manchester, only factories and offices. There's no people there at that time. 2 o'clock in the morning. Fell down to my hands and knees and started to cry like a baby. Now, I wasn't crying because I'd lost my family or my money. I was crying because the first time in my life I realized I couldn't stop drinking. I looked up to the sky and I said, as an atheist, after being molested by my priest, if there's a God up there, I can't do this on my own anymore. And 30 seconds later ish, a guy walked around the corner, 2 o'clock in the morning, missed his last bus home from a Bible study he'd been attending, and came across me in the middle of nowhere. He took me back to his house. We had ate proper food. I shaved for the first time. And he said, Rob, you can stay for as long as you like, but you've got to come to my AA meeting. And I said, well, I don't really like them meeting. Anyway, I went to dry bed. And during the meeting, this guy said, my name's John. I'm a recovered alcoholic. And I'm like, what did he just say? So after the meeting, John, will you sponsor me? My name's Rob. And he said, no, but I will be your spiritual advisor for 12 weeks. So every single Wednesday, I left Derek's at 6. I got there for 7. He said, do not knock at 5-2. Wait till 7. I spent till 8 with him, walked home for 9. That's the date. We did that every week for 12 weeks. After the last time I went to see him, he said things are going to change the next day. They did. So I was working people. My life was getting better in a matter of days. So when I got my first paycheck 2 weeks into a job that Derek got me, I bought him a little teddy bear, John, on a card. And I wrote on the card, and off I went back to his apartment. And when I got there, nobody was there. So I was knocking that hard on the door that the girl from the right-hand apartments came out. He says, can I help you? I said, yeah, where's John? Does he still live here? And she said, John who? I said, John, your neighbor. And she said, I've never seen anybody in that apartment. I've only been here a few months. So I went round to the left-hand side and I banged on his door because now I'm frustrated, these liars. Big guy came to the door. The one. I said, where's John moved to? Where's he? John who? So he tells me that if I walk through that door where John was, I'll fall 2 or 3 flights and kill myself. So I think these guys are plotting to make me go insane. So I goes back to the meeting the next night and I said to the chairman, he goes, Rob, good to see you. Thank God for that. You recognize me. I'm thinking of going crazy here. I said, does John still come here? And he said, John who? And I said, oh my God, the guy on the coffee machine I was speaking to. And he said, Rob, let me interrupt you. We thought you were praying because you're there speaking to yourself. Never found that, man. But 95% of what he's taught me is what we teach here. So after 10,000 patients, we have a 99% success rate. And our nearest competitor is probably 11%. and there it goes, you know. Shit, I know, man. We are well advanced more than anybody else in this industry. I run there's 7 people. It's a multi-million-dollar company. We get to work with all the movie stars and the musicians and all them great stuff. And it came from this guy that we could never trace.
I have a lot to unpack there. And I have to say, even though this is going to seem like it's not genuine, this is very genuine. If somehow, John, you're listening to this, whoever you are, reach out to me because I got to talk to you. But I think that there's so much value in that. I'm not even going to try to understand that part of the story. But what I think is incredible is the fact that a person or an experience can have a lasting impact and not only change your life, but because it changed your life, changed the lives of hundreds and thousands of people after that.
Yeah.
And disappear in an instant.
Yeah.
And it kind of plays to the whole idea of the addiction and how people end up falling into that, because oftentimes people feel like they're stuck and that nothing can help them change or that they can't change. And I think that what's incredible is that you had someone who or something that impacted your life that you've never been able to track back to. And yet it's inspired your hustle and it's genuinely changed your life and genuinely changed the lives of those around you. I want to ask you 2 questions about addiction, specifically as it relates to the hustle and how people end up, unfortunately, sometimes, and I've said, and I repeat it specifically as we dive into this episode with you, that I do not believe that keep hustling means that you hustle until you're broke. I have championed what I call the keep hustling movement, and anyone who wants to join me joins on the premise that keep hustling means that a person can constantly, consistently redefine their hustle, but that we keep trying to take one step forward, and that my hustle is not the same as your hustle, and your hustle is not the same as the next person's hustle, and that it's actually the opposite of what people quote unquote hate about the quote unquote hustle culture. But I want to ask you 2 specific questions. One, you said that you have an addictive personality or the extreme personality. I tell people all the time that I live my life in extremes. Dieting, disaster for me, because I will do 1 meal a day, eating almost nothing for 3 or 4 weeks. It bothers my wife because then I lose weight like that. And then I'm like, forget this, I'm done with it. That doesn't mean that I'm going to pig out, but like, I'm not going to follow a regimen that I'm not going to follow to an extreme. In your experience, though, is there a correlation between success and the people who do things in the extreme, or addiction and people who do things in the extreme? And if so, if those 2 things are linked, which I think you're going to say they are, then how do successful people avoid the pitfalls of difficult addictions and negative addictions?
So the addictive personality comes from childhood trauma, period. So childhood trauma is the gateway drug. What a lot of people fall into is childhood trauma can be many forms, but what we are told in measurement and learned behavior from family determines our future because we believe what mom and dad say is the truth. So we go at a lot of people don't realize is you can be anybody you want to be and you can earn as much money as you want to earn. You see, if you're a car salesman, there's millions of cars a year sold. It's not the cars, it's not the job, it's not the business, it's not the empire, it's you because you have limited beliefs. We're the only people in the world, Aaron, that offer a money-back guarantee. You know, everybody who's listening to this is listening for a reason. And I'm telling you now, once we change that mindset, because all negativity and sabotage is a mindset that wants to kill you and make it look like an accident. We can rewire brains for success. We can rewire brains for addiction, for anxiety. But what a lot of people do is they're taking a lot of things at once. So bear with me. I'll explain this in layman's terms. You sat at home, you're watching TV. I'm in San Antonio, so let's say it's the Dallas Cowboys. I'll put it on channel 4. I'm watching the Dallas Cowboys. I'm screaming at the screen when they don't score, and I'm jumping up and down. So the brain doesn't know the difference between the true and the false. So my head's telling me that I'm there in the game and I'm screaming at the referee. You give that remote control to your son or daughter and he starts flicking through all the channels. And all of a sudden you've got like 400 channels coming at you. That's childhood trauma. Take the remote back, put it on channel 4 and concentrate on the one thing that you want to be successful. Get rid of the noise. I will give you my car, my money, and everything I own if this doesn't happen to you. Because neuroplasticity, hypothalamus, basal ganglia, and the amygdala are the three guys that change your life. Look where I've come from to where I am. And I have over 10,000 patients that are still doing the same. But we fall into that thing of never being blonde enough, tall enough, thin enough, or rich enough. And that's not your identity. Your past is not your identity. Today is your identity.
Yeah, but and what I find amazing about that, and I agree with you, and what I think is incredible about your story, your journey is you opened the episode by describing, or you mentioned in the first answer, that someone offered you to play basketball and you decided you didn't want to because you live your life in the extreme, and therefore you either are going to be extremely good at basketball or not do it at all. And yet someone whose life living in the extreme took them to the extreme negative and now to the extreme positive is not saying, whatever the source is, and I'm not an expert, so I can't tell you, I'm going to take your word for it about the childhood trauma. What I'm saying to you is, you never have said, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the goal is to rid yourself of that personality trait that's been embedded in you by the trauma. You're just working with that trait, that skill, that what's become a part of you, and taking it out of the negative and making it positive. But you yourself, correct me if I'm wrong, admitted that you haven't removed yourself from the addictive personality, from the living life in extremes.
Addictive personality is for life. You can't change that. So addictive personality, where you're suffering from childhood trauma, needs to be healed. If it doesn't, you'll suffer. You'll never keep relationships. You'll never keep a job. You'll always be unhappy. But what happens when we fix, like, look at alcohol. Alcohol has 1% to do with alcoholism, and the same with any other addiction. So addictive personality, once we go through our childhood trauma, we change 3 parts of the brain and rewire the brain. Therefore, our DNA changes. Then you can literally do anything you want to do. And my extreme is, I play basketball. No, good. Why? I'm looking at Channel 4 right now. I have 5 businesses running now, all taking over $5-6 million each. I'm on Channel 4. So am I going to get waylaid by doing something I'm not really interested in? Not really. Not really, But that addictive personality, once cleared, the brain is genius. Absolutely genius. Babies are born with 2 fears. Falling, loud noises, the rest is man-made. Wait till your father gets home. You can't start a business. Who do you think you are? The answer is this. Says who? Well, you can't. Says who?
But so what you're saying, I think, is, and I think that this is a very important point to everyone out there who's starting their hustle or thinks that they're stuck in their hustle, is that you don't necessarily have to, the answer is not uprooting the challenge, meaning the answer is not ridding a person of the addictive personality. You said it's there for life. And I believe that what ends up happening is people try to change who they are, change what's been imbued in them. Say, my goal, I will not be successful. I cannot chase my dream. I cannot start the business. I cannot start a family. I cannot be who I want to be or live where I want to live or live the life that I really want to live until I say I no longer have an extreme personality. And therefore, that is what stands in the way when a person should embrace it, define it, make it their success.
Yes.
And I think that that's so often, and so many people who I speak to, that's what stands in the way. What stands in the way is saying, I want to be someone else. And keep hustling, and life and success, the most successful people in the world say, again, not illegal, not hurting others, right? If someone wants to be a mass murderer, that's not cool. I'm not saying that. But there's always going to be a leader and a follower.
Yes.
And as dangerous as it is for the follower to try to lead, I believe that it's equally as dangerous for the leader to put themselves in the back and follow. And I think that you'll agree with that.
I love that. Yeah, definitely love that. But we look at the neuroscience we have today and the quantum physics that backs it up. It's like we can change. Like if I've got the addictive personality and I'm addicted to drugs or whatever, there's a cure for addiction, period. There's not a cure for alcoholism. But let's look at the brain when pertaining to that. So neuroscience says we can change everything about the change and we can reinvent ourselves. However, the traits are always the same. If you come from a family that's never succeeded and you want to be the first, you have to clear all this stuff we're talking about. But everything else, I believe leaders are born. It's very hard sometimes to create a leader. He's never going to be as positive and as successful as a born leader. And then the childhood trauma and the way you grow up plays into that. So if you surround yourself with negative people, guess what? If you surround yourself with 9 negative people, you'll be the 10. If you're on 40 grand a year and you want to earn 60 grand a year, you've got to hang around the 60 grand a year, guys. It's the mirroring part of the brain. My hustle when I first started was, can I take my hourly rate to 3 figures? That's how I started. And then I got a little side hustle, but with the addictive personality, the little side hustle was a restaurant that ends up being one of the biggest successes in San Antonio. So I got another side hustle, which is a security company. It's not the companies, it's the mindset behind that. So if you have that mindset, whatever you touch will work, then it'll never fail. And the only reason it will fail is there's a better opportunity waiting. And you've got to look at this, guys. I have 2 PhDs, behavioral science and psychology. I went to Oxford University. That was a hustle in its own, how I got there. It's like life has opportunities every single day that you're not picking up because your vibration isn't right, because your energy isn't right. It's all there for the taking. The past does not define you.
People don't take it. That's my question. Why do people not take it?
Why do people what? Sorry,
not take it.
They don't see it.
Taking.
Yeah, but they don't see it because they're stuck in their past. They're stuck in their I can't do this. They're stuck in I'm scared of failure. Oh, by the way, I'm also scared of success because we build our comfort zone around who we grow up with and our families. So if my parents lived on the projects all their life, if I want to step out of that into like 6 figures a year, which is unheard of in my time, you've got to change your vibration. You've got to change your energy. You've got to clear up all the shit that's holding you back. Anything you do here today, like you can't keep relationship, you keep failing in business, you're unhappy, goes directly back to childhood trauma. Direct back to someone who's told you that you can't do it. This is a lame and easy way of explaining it. But what happens is the basal ganglia is kind of our repetition, strength, and confirms. If we're repeating old behavior and thought patterns, we're not going to see the opportunities that arise. And once people start getting well, then they see all these opportunities that are coming every single day, but they're in the space to receive that opportunity.
I love that. You created the DVDs. Let's get back to 98% recovery. Why 98?
Well, it's an AA thing. We used to have 98%. I don't go to AA anymore. But everybody walks around about 40 to 45% of the capability. You need to be at 98 to 100%. And
why not
if you
100?
don't
So
believe
why should
that,
the goal not be 100?
Well, I think that, we have a 98% success rate. It's really 100, but though you get to that level, it's like, we have to strive to be the best person could we. Now, I don't have bad days, but I do have better days than others. So the 98% is good for me. Can I get to 100? Hell yeah. What if I have a bad day? Like some days are better than others, then maybe it's a 98. So 98, psychologically speaking, is more attainable than 100%. Something for $49.99 sounds better than $50, if that makes sense. So it's kind of a neurological thinking backed by psychology and quantum physics.
No, 100%. I knew you were going to say that. And I think that that's another thing about the hustle is especially high achievers will never achieve perfection. Because when they reach, as you said, right, you reach the mountaintop, then you open the restaurant's successful, and your brain is wired to not that you've failed and you haven't reached the mountaintop. You didn't realize that there was a cloud, and the cloud just moved to the side, and the mountaintop is really higher than it was before.
Yeah.
And so you'll never get to the 100. And that's what I think. And that's why I love the idea of getting back to 98%, because if you want to get to, or not getting back to, let's say getting to 98%, because if a person is constantly getting to 98%, it's like lifting weights.
Yeah.
That 98 is constantly going. You might by the way, you might be able to jump just a little higher today and hit that 100, but then you're going to, quote unquote, drop down to 90. The other thing I think that's very important about what you're saying is that means that there will be ebbs and flows. Even if you hit 100, you're going to drop down to 98. The important thing is to make sure that the person, quote unquote, only drops down to 98 and doesn't have the 0, 100, 0, 100, 0, 100.
Yes.
That's danger zone.
Oh my God. Yes.
And that, it's amazing because we're 80 plus episodes into this, and that's what I've seen is that if people would just strive to be the best 98.
Yeah.
And not to make light of the term drugs, but the greatest drug is the taste of 100.
Yeah.
The taste.
Yeah.
Not the remaining at 100. The greatest thing is when a person, I saw this stat once, that a person that gets accidentally bumped into first class, their financial future can change more than if they purchased a ticket.
I'm loving what you're saying. The only podcaster who's getting this shit. Oh my God! Yes,
the guy who never thinks he's going to be in first class, and all of a sudden there's a glitch at the airline, and he gets there, and they put him in, and the person comes over and says, "Would you like a glass of champagne?" That taste is incredible.
Yeah,
and
he's there.
And that's the hustle. That's the hustle. The hustle is, and I say this about entrepreneurship all the time. Why is it that the world's most successful entrepreneurs have more failures than every other entrepreneur? We look at their successes, but they've also failed a ton. We just don't care about it because we look at that. But Elon Musk, he's got a graveyard of bad ideas.
Yeah.
Not bad ideas, but failed ideas. Jeff Bezos, same thing. You know how many products Amazon has tried and can't? Yeah. And yet everybody dreams in the business world of being those people. Yeah. Apple was a failure.
Yeah. The Beatles were, J.K. Rowling was, and then all these things. It's a learning. If you fail, there's something better coming if you carry on. But that first class mentality is that people are treating like first class, so the memory and the brain switch. I always tell people, listen, if you're average, normal person, maybe you don't need to travel first class, because once you do, it changes you. If people start treating you like a hero, you become a hero. Like a leader, you become a leader. So when people are offering champagne and it's all nice, the brain goes, hey, listen, I want a bit of this. There's a great line from a band back in Manchester, and it says, if I hadn't seen such riches, I could live with being poor. And it's so true. But when you're going to first class and you get off the plane first, and people going to the restroom from the back of their plane, like they're looking up to you, because it's just crazy what it does to the brain.
And you're not that person, by the way. It's the craziest thing. You don't become the guy who has to sit in first class, and the first time, I bet people feel. I love this analogy because people they feel self-conscious, like I shouldn't be that person. Yeah. And then if you're a motivated person, you say, well, why not? Why can't I be that person?
Yeah.
So I think that people often lose out because they don't have the struggles. And I'm not saying that anyone should live on the street the way you did, nor am I saying that I'm happy that we're having this conversation and that things turned out for you the way they did. But I think that people very often can learn from other people's tragic experience or from theirs. And if they do, then they'll see greater success, and Keep Hustling will be, for them, the lifestyle, the mindset, and not a struggle or a burden. So, Dr. Kelly, I can't thank you enough for being here. This is awesome. And I hope we get to do it again.
100%, man. I think out of all the podcasts, and I've done thousands of these, and with all the TV shows, millions of people watching, I would say that you're in my top 3 favorite and best podcast hosts.
Thank you.
Because you know what to say, when to say, and your intelligence around the brain, like what you said before, blew my mind. That's why I was screaming. It's like, you get it, man. I don't know if you earn a living at this, but you will soon, I'm telling you.
I appreciate it. I'm just an insurance guy who's trying to inspire others to keep hustling. As you know, Doctor, we have a closing tradition on this podcast where we ask our guests to leave us with their favorite motivational and inspirational quote and what it means to them and to their hustle. And with that, I will once again say, Dr. Rob Kelly, thank you so much for being here. Everyone should check out your books and DVDs. Don't be afraid to reach out. Reach out to Dr. Kelly if you want to be better, or if you're struggling. Your struggle is your greatest opportunity. And I think that Dr. Kelly is a living example of that, both personally and professionally. And so with that, Dr. Kelly, I will say the floor is yours and the quote is yours.
I'm going to say the phrase that I live by today, but I won't give you the movie. So try and find it and message Aaron or myself about what it is. But it's a great line, and it's as simple as this: all bets are off. That's the famous line.
All bets are off
And
and keep hustling.
oh, definitely. I mean, life's a hustle, man. Just never turned anything down. I still hustle today. Yeah, but you're a rich doctor. Really? When people are worth like 10 million, they don't really have $10 million in the bank. So I'm always hustling. This is a hustle, man. I come from the street.
Love
I'm
it.
professional. Shut up. It's just a hustle, man. And what happens, and I'll finish real quick, what happens when you start pushing that hustle and you go, wow, nobody's noticed yet, and I push it a bit more and go, we have no experience in the restaurant business. Not me or my sister or anybody. And yet we're the most successful restaurant in San Antonio. Hustle, hustle, hustle. If it doesn't work out, as the Beatles and J.K. Rowling will tell you, it's because you're not 100% ready to accept. You're not at that 98%. But you know something? You miss every single shot you don't take.
There we go. All bets are off.
Baby.
This has been another episode of Keep Hustling with Dr. Rob Kelly. Remember, do well by doing good and always keep hustling.
All right, hustlers, that brings us to the end of another fantastic episode. Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. If you have any suggestions, comments, or even just want to say hello, please feel free to reach out to us on all social media platforms. We are Keep Hustling Pod. Until next time, stay curious, stay hungry, and keep hustling.